This is the opening screen for the application Reseller Pro DB meaning Database Management System. We're going to start the application description on this screen to show you that when you open the application, you're presented with what's called the Advanced Calendar. The Advanced Calendar provides you an interface where you can schedule, and I can show you from this drop-down. You have an administrator. In this case, it has a guy's name in there, but you can add, or I can add for you, a series of different things that are available for you. As far as if you go over to users, you can go in there and add a new user by saying plus up here, or you can go into a user by clicking on the green arrow at the edge of the screen and typing in your own name in here. For example, you could say user and then change it later to whatever you want it to be. And that will give you, in this case, let's take this out. Put user app, and there is a login, and I'm just going to take the login and call it user. And as I leave the screen, you're going to see where if I go to use this thing, it's going to say password, and I'm going to put in user in lowercase, so it's case sensitive, you know that. Okay, and it says message password has successfully been changed. And now if I close this, it changes to user, and I can say OK. In this case, it wants me to put it in again just to re-enter it. Now I did it in uppercase, it would give me an error. So I'm going to go back and just say lowercase user, and then say OK. Now it should come back out here, and you'll see now it says user, user app, user. That is a general indication that it has corrected it. And if I go in here now and look, it says user app, and that's the title that we put in there. So you can add additional users if you want to. Now that will only work normally for the Macintosh or Windows, but in the iOS app, if you wanted to have a login, you could go ahead and use it, but it's not required. This is only for changing the app drop-down list for different calendars. And the way this works is you click in here, this you could put in a user, and now you're running this one, and with the password of lowercase user and user app, I could log into this application as far as creating and doing whatever I want to do. It's not really required to have a password on this because it's set up for the iOS platform where it should come in and show the administrator, which is this one here, but you can still add additional calendars if you need them. For example, if you had a delivery calendar, an appointment calendar, and whatever, they would be listed here, and as you change them, you'd have your own usernames and passwords for them. Now, I'm the administrator, so anything I put in would be used as an administrator when I added something. So let's go ahead and add something just to see how the calendar works. I'm going to go over on this plus sign. I'm going to click. It's going to open up a new user screen, and what I'm going to do is I have an appointment, so I'm going to call it, I'm going to give it John Smith. I'm going to say J. Smith. And the reason I'm doing that is that I'm keeping this as small as possible. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to pick one of the current files that I have in there for whatever it is, like a police auction. Let's go ahead and do police auction. And you'll see what it'll do is it'll drop in the comments field and some of the information from the police auctions. Now when you get to the auction purchasing screen, you'll see all this data in that screen, and you'll become more familiar with it, what we're doing here. It automatically put in the date, and you can do a date range. So if it's, say for example, this task is going to take 2 days, you would put in there, if it's 2 full days, it'd be the 3rd when I ended this thing. And then down here, I give it a screen thing as far as attending sale, auction, whatever. In this case, I'm going to say, let's say auction purchase, and I would say J. Smith, and I'm going to go ahead and put a colon in there, and I'm going to say offering new items. Now that's in the police auction as a example, and what it's doing, it says auction purchase. It puts a little icon on that thing on the calendar showing the kind of thing that it is. It matches the auction purchase as a little calculator. Now you could put a time in here if it was the same day and you wanted to have it start at a certain time. So if I put in 09 colon and I say 9:30, that would be when I would actually start setting up this. On a new record, when you're adding a new record, and that's what we're doing in here, you could say repeat for so many days, but most of the time you'll never have to do this. Over here where it says customer properties, I can add custom properties like new client, new company, new task, or I can go over here and create a new one where I say edit the values and add a new one. And then this field over here after that would be something you want to put in there for information. If you want to delete it, you can click on this and it would delete it. Remember, I started it looking at it by clicking on the plus arrow to add one. Now if I come down here to this area, you'll see there's a boxed area. You can have a large number of different calendars in here if you want them. You can either select them all, unselect them all, or individually select them. So if I wanted the people that were in the user app, I could click on this, and now that calendar would now be active for this appointment. Now we call them appointments, but they really are anything that you want to do as far as like scheduling, or say you have to have a meeting or anything like that. And you can tell that by looking in here, some of the options. Buyer support, calling for support, attending a sale, attending an auction, meeting my sale if you're going to have your own, shipping records for, you can put calendars in there when you're supposed to ship stuff, and if you have a vendor issue, you can put them in there too. Now, this is the kind of information that is important to know and then be able to edit. And this one is actually what is called the customer managed ID. This is actually coming from the back end of the application on the auction purchase screen, and I will be creating a blank application, and for this one I'm putting data in there and we'll be showing it in the application, but then when you receive it on iTunes, it's not going to have any data in it. There's another thing we can do here where it says notes. If you want to make notes and then have a comment in here for the notes, like a description of the notes, and then you can put in there, once you create this, then you can create over here where you're creating a number of actions or whatever based on whatever the comments are over here. We will talk more about these in some of the next videos and what this is used for, but right now it's not necessary to cover that. So to get out of here, you just click off of it. If you did want to have a closing thing on the same date, say like this is 9:30 to 11, you could put 11 and it would consider that the end of it, and it would give you, in this case, the estimated hours are more for the if you have a time length of a thing where you're going to be being there for 4 hours or whatever like that, it would put it in and then show you a scale at the top if you're completing a certain thing as far as your notes and information is concerned. Okay, so when you're in here and you completed everything, the next thing you want to do is go ahead and come up here and say close, and what it'll do is it'll put the actual information you just created into the calendar. If you are doing this on the same day that you have up here for September, for example, you could always change these if you wanted to a different date in the future by going back and editing. You can either click on the title or on this flag, and when you do that, you're allowed to come back in. But what I want to show you here is we have some new stuff in here. And what this is you have the police auction that we had before, but in this particular case you have an action status. And if I click on, these are all the statuses for this. If I come back over here, these are action addresses where if I'm going to a city for an event, like I'm going to the police auction or whatever, these would be edited in the actual purchase area, and then they would show back over here in the police auction information. That's for this particular record that we created and selected. This information would be brought in here and left. Now you're going to see some new things in here. You see some subtasks where if you have to do something when you go to the show, like meet Mr. Jones at 3 or something like that, or you have a work log where you're actually presenting documentation or paperwork or a contract or whatever you want, you can also add that information here. For example, if I click on it, you'll see it says it's there. It'll put a number in there when I complete it. It'll show the start date, the date due, and the title. And on the work log, what it does, it says whoever's going to do the work, the start date, and the description, and then the time spent is basically the time that it was used. After you look at the time spans up here, it'll automatically calculate in the hours up here for estimated. Now there's a lot of stuff going on here. You do not have to use it all, okay? Just so you know that. It's basically information that if you have to have it, this is supporting information. Up here, anytime you do an appointment, you should fill in all the data up above here and pick whoever is associated with that particular activity. In this particular case, these are actually different kinds of vendors or auction areas or certain things like miscellaneous sales. whatever these were, they were created in the purchase area as entities, and we'll explain what entities are in that screen. Okay, so with that said, and we're always through here, you can always say it's completed, that you did it this morning, and now you completed that meeting. Now let's when we go back and close it, you'll see it draws a line through this and puts a check in here and says, this is completed now, that we already did this. If we go to another day by going backward or forward or the current day, we'll see whatever that activity is for that. Plus, if we go to the screen for the user app, you'll see the same data that's in there because we put a check in the checkbox. If this did not have a check in the checkbox in the screen we were working before, then this would be blank and that activity would not be here. So you can also, we're up here, you can put in a word for something within the calendar, the one you're on, and see if there's anything that matches it for that date. In some cases, people have a full block of appointments, and this is a scrolling thing here, so if you add more and more and more, it's going to show them. As far as being down toward the bottom, there's a scroll bar. So there's a lot of stuff in there. Now this allows you to delete this particular entry on this record because this one was not completed by this person. And say, for example, it wasn't important for him to complete it because he didn't have any activity in it. But look it up here. The administrator did have it. He did complete it. So you can see where you can assign things to different people, and until they do their part of whatever this is on their calendar, then you would have to go in there and present that information on that row as far as is it completed. So if I went down to this one, said this, and then clicked on it, and it opened, I might want to put a note in here for this guy, for his calendar, for what I want him to do. So you have the option of doing it for the administrator or the notes here for this other guy who has checked in here. Now, like I said, if you add a lot more calendars, they will stretch across here. Okay, so if you wanted to delete this also, you could say delete it and confirm it. And now when you go back, you'll see that on this calendar, it's gone. But if I go back to the administrative calendar, it's also gone. What we've done is we've deleted it from the screen and it's no longer existent. And I'm going to show you over here on this side, you'll see that there's a expired appointment that was not completed on the day that it was supposed to be, 7/25. I'm going to click on that and show you what we do normally when that happens. We either set a new date, a new event, and change this portion of it to a date in the future, and then you can repeat this same thing without having to put all the data back in. You just put it in the future to a different date. So if I click up here, I can pick, say, September the 24th or the 23rd, 2016. Then I'd come down here, and if it's the same day, I would put in September again. In this case, I'll say, let's say the 23rd again. So we now have it in there. So they're in there and they're changed. In this case, it's a 9 a.m. appointment, and it's my sale. I'm going to start it at 9:30 and it'll end whenever it ends, and it's for the administrator. Now, if I wanted to add it for the user, in this case, whoever the user is, and in most cases, it would probably be maybe just an action where we would have like my sales or miscellaneous sales that would provide the information for that, I can't even say it, it's hard to say, miscellaneous sale. Okay, and of course with miscellaneous sales, currently there's nothing on the back end in the data in there. If you wanted to go back there, you'd have to exit here by saying close, and then you would click up here on the app map and go to the auction screen. This is where we're going to go and edit those particular items. Okay, so this is the calendar. It has a week calendar, and you can see the week thing here. If you click on the plus sign in here for a date like Friday or Thursday, you can actually click on the first two and that will open up the screen to view it. But this will actually, if you click a plus, it will add a new event or activity. If you want to move through the calendar and look for different days, if you see something with an underline on it, that means somebody has assigned something to that date. And then if you clicked on that date, you would be able to see whatever that assignment was, or it would be in the main calendar, and it'll also show up here on this calendar. Anything that's in for those date or that date range, like month, year, and list. In the case of a list, the list should show all the items that are currently in the database. And in this case, this is the one that is finished. It says record test, and it was all the way back. And I used the bogus date of 2012. And then there's this one on 16, which is example record. If I click on it, as you might expect, or click here, it's going to go ahead and open that record so that I can go ahead and view it. and then I can see the information in this case is 9/23. It's an example record for testing, and I can change this to whatever activity record on the back on the auction screen that I want to. Okay, so let's kind of recap real quick here. Let's close it out. Go back to the day. We could do a search if we wanted to. We could navigate the days. We could show, if we uncheck lists, anything that is completed would not show the check mark as being completed. You want to have that, kind of keep that checked all the time. Users, we did some things about users, about adding them. You do not have to use the multilingual multi-language. That is strictly for developers, and you don't need to be doing that. You'll see currently who's checked in, the user admin administrator. And if you want to re-log back in, if you had a login for the user, you could log in with the user account that you set up. Preferences, this is mostly for the Windows and Mac version, and this portion of changing these, that is really not something you want to do unless you call the developer or contact them, and I'll explain how these are done. And it's kind of a very advanced thing to be doing, so I would recommend that you talk to the developer through the developer website, and that way we can coach you through if you wanted to add something to it. This says a couple things about showing completed, showing occupied days, and email me about updates. This, we want to uncheck that, mainly because for the person that's using this right now, if every time something changed and you had an email in their user record, it would email a thing to them, and we found out over the years that that's not a good thing. You don't want people constantly getting emails for every time somebody enters a record and makes a slight change to it. Do not click these orange arrows because you'll delete the actual drop downs and icons for that. You don't want to do that. Okay, and the online URL is this that goes out to the people who develop this calendar. You can go ahead and you wouldn't want to change that, but you can change the language if you had more languages in here. In this particular case, it's Dutch, English, French, Turkish, and I don't know what that is. I couldn't read it. So basically that's what it's for. And you can go over here and you're done. We will be going on now to the next place using the drop-down list. We're going to start by going to the auction screen, and we're going to decide what we're going to learn there. There's actually 2 videos prepared for that right now that'll show you how to use the auction screen. That is the very first step after you've gone through the calendar. Thank you.